We can hear a lion's roar from 2 miles away and a leopard's hiss from half a mile. But the silent cry of a mother who has lost her cubs travels through the universe with no one to hear it. Those amber eyes were never meant to meet this way. On the African savanna, leopards and lions are born rivals. One is a lone, skillful hunter that hides in trees. The other is the king of the grasslands, ruling with team strength. They fight in a brutal battle for survival. Yet on a high branch of an ancient sycamore tree under Kruger's star-filled sky, the strangest pair in natural history was breaking every rule of the wild. A full-grown female leopard was gently licking the fur of a lion cub. This is not a fairy tale. There is no magic or human help. This is a story of deep pain, loss, and how a mother's instinct can cross every barrier nature built over millions of years. Night fell over Kruger's wide savanna. The African sky blazed with stars. Nayla, a 5-year-old female leopard, climbed her tall sycamore tree. Her body curved smoothly between the branches, but her sharp golden eyes were now empty, heavy with sorrow. Just 2 weeks earlier, Nayla had been a happy mother. Her 3 cubs, 2 males and 1 female, waited for her after each hunt. Their welcoming calls filled the small valley where she had made her home. But nature never promises peace. This year's first rain came suddenly and violently. Floodwater rushed down, sweeping away everything in its path. Nayla was out hunting when the disaster struck. When she returned, the den was gone. Her 3 cubs, too young to swim or climb, had no chance. For days, Nayla wandered the flooded area. Her cries of pain echoed in the darkness, making even the wary Impalas shudder. It was the sound of a mother who had lost everything. Nayla's body still made milk a cruel reminder of the cubs who were no longer there. Each hour felt endless. But fate sometimes offers twists no one can imagine. Not far away, another tragedy was unfolding. The Pride Rock lion pride was one of the strongest in the region. It had 2 adult males, 6 females, and 7 cubs of different ages. Their land had plenty of water and food, but wealth always draws those who crave power. On a hot afternoon, 3 strange male lions appeared at the edge of the territory. They were large, with muscles under their golden fur and thick dark manes. They did not come to share. They came to take over. The fight lasted 2 days. It ended with the death of both adult males. Following nature's cruel law, the new rulers killed every lion cub under 1 year old. They wanted only their own bloodline to survive. In the chaos, a female lion named Sarabi risked her life to save her only son, Copa. He was a 3-month-old cub with big golden eyes and soft pale fur. She fought hard, but the numbers were too many. Before dying, she pushed Copa into a thick thorn bush where the attackers could not reach him. "Run, my love," were the last words Copa heard. He ran with all his tiny strength. He rushed through tall grass, crossed narrow rock gaps, and did not stop until sunset. Exhausted and terrified, he curled up in a small bush near the foot of a large sycamore tree. That night, for the first time, Copa faced darkness alone, without his mother's warmth, without the pride's protection. His weak cries mixed with the sounds of the grassland and the cold stars. At dawn, Nayla began her hunt. Her body was strong, but her mind was heavy with grief. Her paws moved silently through the grass. Her golden eyes searched for prey. Then she heard a small, weak cry. It was not prey. It was the sound of a young cub. Nayla froze. Her hunting urge faded, replaced by curiosity and a buried motherly urge. She followed the sound to the foot of the large sycamore tree she often climbed. The cry came from a nearby bush. Nayla crouched, ready for danger, but what she saw shocked her. A lion cub, maybe 3 months old, lay curled up and shaking. His pale golden fur was dusty and scratched. He was too small, too weak to run. By every rule of nature, Neela should kill him at once. Lions are the longtime enemies of leopards. When grown, this tiny creature would become a deadly threat. Every hunting instinct told her to attack, but something else happened. When the lion cub looked up with fearful eyes, Neela felt a sharp pain in her chest. Those eyes held the same fear and need she had seen in her own lost cubs. Neela's body, still making milk for cubs who were gone, acted before her mind could stop it. Prolactin, the mothering hormone, surged through her. No thought was made, only the deepest instinct. Quick as lightning, Neela bit the lion cub's scruff, not to kill but to carry. It was the same move she had used hundreds of times with her own cubs. Her fangs held firmly but gently. Copa, too tired and scared to resist, gave a weak cry as he was lifted. With a smooth, sure motion, Neela climbed the sycamore tree, carrying her strange prey. She climbed higher until she reached a wide, flat fork where she had once sheltered her own cubs. Gently she placed Copa in the middle of the fork. The lion cub shook, eyes shut tight, sure his end had come. But instead of claws and fangs, he felt a warm, rough tongue licking his head. Opening his eyes, he saw the female leopard watching him not with the eyes of a hunter, but with something else. A look he had once seen in his own mother's eyes. The first days were a fight between fear and need. Copa, too young to live alone, tried again and again to escape the high tree. But his legs were not built for climbing. He cried for his mother all night, but only Neela answered. She kept him in the tree with steady watch. Whenever he tried to climb down, she brought him back not with cruelty, but with the patience of a mother teaching her child about danger. Hunger and thirst forced Copa to face reality. At first he refused, but by the second day he drank milk from Neela. His small body could not fight the basic need to live. When the first drops touched his tongue, something shifted. The taste was not like his mother's milk, but it was sweet and strong. It gave life to his weak body. Neela, too, felt a deep change. Her body, still mourning her lost cubs, seemed to wake with a new life to care for. Her milk, once a painful reminder, now had purpose. Each time Copa fed, oxytocin, the love hormone, filled her body, building a bond no natural law could have foreseen. Day after day, Neela hunted and brought food for Copa. At first she chewed the meat soft before feeding him. Later, as Copa grew and his teeth sharpened, he learned to tear meat himself, not like a lion, but like a leopard, careful, patient, and efficient. The most amazing thing was how Copa learned to move in the tree. Lions are not climbers. Their legs and claws are not built for gripping bark. But under Neela's steady guidance, Copa made his own way. He learned to use his jaw for balance, to place his paws with care, and above all, to beat his fear of heights. By the second month, he could climb the lower branches alone. His shoulder and foreleg muscles grew thicker, shaped more for climbing than for running on the grassland. A biologist might have called it nature's amazing adaptability, where setting and teaching can beat even genetic limits. But above all, it was the bond between the leopard and the lion cub that stood out. Each night they curled together on the safe tree fork. Copa found warmth in Neela's spotted fur, while she groomed him as she had once done with her own cubs. Neela's soft purr, the sound leopards make for their young, became Copa's nightly lullaby. On moonlit nights, Copa sometimes looked toward the distant horizon where lion roars drifted. Something in those sounds stirred his instincts. But then Neela would come close, touch her nose to his neck, and the moment would pass. The sycamore tree had become his world, and Neela was the only family he had left. Asterisk, the dry season turned to rainy season, and Copa grew fast. At 6 months, he was no longer the helpless cub. He had become a strong youth, with the first hints of a mane around his neck. His body grew longer, his shoulders wider. The clear truth was that Copa would soon be bigger than Neela. This was the riskiest time for their bond. For most animals, the shift from child to adult means separation from the mother. Here, it was even more dangerous. Lion instincts would soon waken Copa. What would happen when those instincts saw a leopard as a possible enemy? Yet again, Nila and Copa broke nature's rules. Instead of drifting apart, their bond deepened. Copa joined Nila on hunts, but not in the lion way, hunting in groups and chasing prey. He learned the leopard style: patient ambush, waiting for the right moment, striking with perfect aim. For impalas and zebras, this strange hunting pair was a new threat. How could they handle a lion that could drop from a tree, or a team where the lion's strength met the leopard's speed? One afternoon, as they shared a fresh impala, a new danger came. A large male leopard, maybe drawn by the meat's smell, crept closer. Male leopards often kill cubs that are not theirs, especially when those cubs are with their mothers fighting for land and food. The intruder growled, staring at Nila with hostile eyes. He was bigger, stronger, and ready to fight. Nila, with her protective urge, stepped between Copa and the threat, her fur rising along her spine. What happened next broke every rule. Copa, who had learned the protection from Nila, did not hide like a normal cub. He jumped forward, standing beside his adoptive mother. From his throat came not a lion's roar, but the sharp hiss of a leopard, the sound he had heard Nila use against enemies. The scene was so odd that the male leopard froze. Before him was a female leopard and a creature he could not name, shaped like a young lion, but acting and sounding like a leopard. And most of all, this mix showed no fear. After a tense pause, the male leopard decided the fight was not worth it. He backed off and vanished into the bushes, leaving Nila and Copa with their meal. That night, when they returned to the sycamore tree, their bond had changed once more. Nila was no longer just the protective mother, and Copa was no longer just the needy cub. They had become allies, guarding each other. Nila licked the small scratch Copa had earned in the fight, and Copa answered with a soft growl, a sound neither lion nor leopard, but their own private language. When the rainy season ended and the dry season returned, a bigger test came. Copa, now almost a year old, showed clear signs of adulthood. His mane had grown thick around his head. His roar had grown deep and strong. The truth was clear. Copa's true nature was waking. On bright moon nights, he often climbed down from the sycamore tree and stood on a rock, staring toward the distant horizon, where lion roars sometimes drifted. Something inside him answered that call, a wish to run the wide grasslands, to feel the power in his legs, to live as his kind was meant to live. Nila watched these changes with quiet care. She did not try to stop Copa when the distant sounds pulled him. She simply stayed close, a patient, gentle presence. Maybe she knew, in the way only a mother can, that no bond, however strong, can erase a creature's true self. Then one night, as Copa stood on his usual rock, a strong roar came from much closer than before. This time, Copa answered. From deep in his chest rose a sound, not the leopard hiss he had copied all his life, but the deep, powerful roar of a young male lion. The sound rolled across the grassland, waking sleeping impalas and catching the ear of the distant lion pride. Nila froze on her branch. In that moment, she knew the day she had feared had come. Her son, for that was how she saw Copa, could not live forever as a leopard. Sooner or later, his true self would demand its place. But instead of fear or sadness, Nila felt a strange calm. Not because she was ready to let him go, but because she understood that real love is not about holding on. It is about letting the one you love become who they truly are. The next morning, when the first light touched the sycamore's leaves, Nila woke Copa with a soft lick on his face, as she had done hundreds of times. But today was different. Instead, of leading him to hunt, she climbed down the tree and signaled for him to follow. They walked for hours, farther than ever from their home. Copa, curious but trusting, stayed close. Finally, when the sun was high, they reached a place with tall, golden grass and big rocks. There, resting in the shade of a large rock, was a pride of lions about 12 in all, 4 adult females, 5 cubs of different ages, and 3 young males maybe a bit older than Copa. This was not Copa's old pride, nor the group that had killed his mother. It was a new pride that had moved into the area in recent months. Neela stopped at a safe distance, hiding in a bush. She looked at Copa, and in her eyes was a silent message. This is where you belong. Copa looked from Neela to the lions and back, unsure. He gave a soft growl, the sound they had shared, as if asking if this was really what she wanted. Neela touched her nose to his cheek, a gentle sign of love. Then she stepped back, nodding toward the pride. Her eyes, once blazing with protectiveness, now held only unconditional love, willing to let go if that was best for him. Copa stood still, torn between 2 worlds. Before him was his bloodline, the life his instincts craved. Behind him was the mother who had saved him, who had taught him not just to hunt and live, but a love that crossed every line. In a moment that felt endless, Copa chose. He walked toward the lion pride, but after a few steps he stopped and turned to Neela. One last time. A soft growl left his throat, not goodbye, but a promise. Then he moved on, his walk proud and sure toward his fate. Neela stood still, watching as her son neared the pride. At first, the group was wary, but soon curiosity won. An older female stepped forward, sniffing Copa carefully. Maybe she sensed something familiar in his scent, not the smell of her pride, but still the smell of her own kind. Slowly, Copa was accepted. A young male lion came close, and after a tense pause, they began to play the usual bonding of young lions. As the sun set, Neela finally turned away. Her body felt heavy with loss, but her heart was light with pride. She had done what every mother must do. She had let her child go to become himself. And that could have been the end, a touching story of love crossing species, ending in a meaningful parting. But nature, in all its depth, sometimes has won. Last surprise. 3 months later, when the dry season was at its peak and the savanna glowed gold, Neela rested on her familiar sycamore branch. She had gone on with her life hunting, guarding her land, surviving. But those who watched noticed her eyes often turned toward the horizon where she had sent her son. Then one afternoon, as the evening sun dimmed, a shape appeared at the edge of her sight. A large, powerful figure moved toward the sycamore tree with clear purpose. Neela tensed, ready for danger. But as the figure drew near, she saw it was no threat. It was a miracle. It was Copa, now bigger and stronger, his mane full around his face. He reached the foot of the sycamore tree and looked up, his eyes searching for Neela. When he found her, a soft growl left his throat, the sound only she would know. Without pause, Neela climbed down and faced her son. They touched noses, the intimate gesture they had shared hundreds of times. And in that moment, the line between species melted away. Copa did not stay long. He had his pride now, duties, a new life. But from that day on, he visited Neela often, sometimes briefly, sometimes for hours, lying together in the sycamore shade. And no matter how time passed, no matter how the world changed, the bond between them, leopard and lion, mother and son, 2 souls who found each other in the deepest pain, remained as strong as the first day. Because sometimes, in this wild and harsh world, true love can cross every barrier, even those built by millions of years of evolution.